So Unreal 5.3 came out just a few days ago as of the recording of this video, and I'm amazed about how much Epic is actually progressing towards one day all of us game developers working in one software instead of third party and Unreal or Unity or whatever engine you decide to use. So today I want to talk about the journey that it takes a games developer like myself, how we used to work, how we work right now, and a little bit about the future of where we're heading in terms of game making, because I do think it's a bright future, but I do think that things are going to change very radically if Epic and other engine makers continue on this path of making sure that people stay in their engine and their engine only. So let's look at the pros and cons of actually going about this path and how we go about making games in this games development world. Let's do it. Welcome to another video. So my name is Harvey Newman. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. First and foremost, if you are new here and you enjoy this content and you really enjoy it, then consider to leave it a thumbs up because that helps a lot. Also, subscribe if you haven't, because every single week I drop these videos talking about animation, the games industry, and most importantly, creating a game studio from nothing. That is what I'm doing at this moment. My studio is named Proxima, and we have about 22 people. We all experienced developers. We're having lots of fun. So if you don't want to miss it and you want to actually join me in this journey of excitement, consider subscribing because more news are coming soon. Now, when it comes to today's topic about engines and third-party software, I'm really passionate about this. And the reason why I'm passionate about this is because things have changed so much in my 20 plus years of working in games development. So when I first started, basically Maya was not the main software that people use for 3D animation and modeling and hair and cloth and all kinds of stuff. It used to be 3D Max. That was the main software. There was also a software called Softimage that people used to use a lot. There was about 5 different softwares, and even Maya, as is known nowadays, was not owned by Autodesk, was owned by this company called Alias Wavefrom. And Alias Wavefrom used to come across as very innovative. They had so many different tools and things that they used in order to make everybody in 3D's lives easier. So they created the FBX, for example, animation layers, motion builder, Maya, and a bunch of other things. They were the creators of this. Autodesk came along, bought them, and obviously, great thing because Autodesk is a massive company. And now, 3D Max and Maya and Motion Builder, they're all owned by Autodesk. I remember the days that Max being Autodesk and Maya being Alias Wavefront, there was a little bit of a fight, not fight, but healthy competition, I should call it. And it was really cool to see the innovations that 3D Max could bring, and then see the innovations that Maya would bring, and then be like, oh, this is better, and this is better. So cool. So that's the story of 3D Max versus Maya and how I used to see it. And, everybody had their pros and cons. It was very much like Sega and Nintendo way back in the day. It was great, healthy competition, awesome. Now, fast forward a few years, now that everything is owned by Autodesk, what ends up happening is that the whole industry is now basically using Maya. And the reason why you're using it is the same reason as the film industry is using it, and it's because Maya is much more of a open-ended back-end kind of like software. So it allows you to plug in a bunch of tools on top of a vanilla software that then basically caters to the needs of the studio. So every big studio has tools and exporters and all kinds of stuff that they bolt on into Maya, and then Maya becomes their own. And that means that they can actually do a bunch of other things that Maya by default, the vanilla Maya, cannot do. This is great. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because Maya has become an incredibly powerful and needed tool in the world of 3D for animators, for lighting artists, for people that actually do cloth and hair physics in general. There's so many things that Maya can do for so many artists because of all these things and plugins and all that stuff that has been accumulated through the years. This is interesting because to me, seeing the transition from 3D to Maya kind of made me think, why can we not do it in engine? And this was way back in the day, because the reality of a games developer is this: you spend most of your time in engine, either you like it or not, mainly because this is what makes the game. So the day-to-day of an animator, for example, or a lighting artist or a modeler, is to basically create a piece of art within a Maya software. It can be Blender, it can be other piece of software. Create the artwork in a specific software outside of the engine, bring it into engine, check if it works in engine, check how it performs in engine, right? And then bring it back to this main software and then go ahead and tweak it again a little bit more until it goes ahead and it works in engine as intended and it meets the metrics for the memory and the performance and all these other things that every single game needs to have in order to actually run at a certain rate and tick rate and all these other things. So this is what happens all the time. Now, if you are like me, and I was an animator for many years, and you have to animate every single day of the week and you have to test your animations every single day of the week, you're constantly bouncing between these two softwares all the time to do your work. Now, because of the bouncing all the time, it feels very much that you need to ask for tools to make that transition as easy as possible. So enter technical animators and software engineers, because then they actually build that gap between the two. Now, the reason why I mentioned about bolting on tools and all the open platform and stuff like that is because technical animators, software engineers come along and they start creating tools for Maya to make your transition easier, right? So they're basically creating that bridge to be a bit easier. So they start creating exporting tools for you to export animations, exporting tools for you to export models, exporting tools that improve certain things. And certain studios out there actually create a whole pipeline that actually allows to the whatever is in Maya to update in engine and whatever is in engine to update in Maya, and that conversation is seamless, which is amazing, right? The faster and the easier the bridge between those two softwares, the better it is, whatever the main software it is, and then whatever engine exists in there. Now, the reason why I thought about why not in engine is exactly because of that. If all of these things that you're doing outside of Unreal or outside of Unity or outside of any other engine could be done within engine and would have like a really strong set of tools, it would make everybody's life easier. Now with Unreal 5.3, and I've been following since Unreal 5.0 came out, all the updates that Epic has been doing, which has been absolutely amazing. With this last update, I feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer to that day, especially from an animator perspective. So on the last update, now you have meta sounds, which basically sound designers use a lot nowadays, and they used to use something similar to Maya called Wise, that they used to actually edit sounds and create sounds outside and then bring into engine and then add it to engine, because Unreal didn't have anything that will allow them to mix tracks and set tracks and select tracks at specific points with logic and things. So they used to do the same thing as what animators do, and now it's in engine and it seems to be very good from what I heard. Now we also have Control Rig. Everybody that is watching this video should know about Control Rig, after all we're animators, but it's basically a rig with IK and FK and all the bells and whistles of a regular rig, and you can go ahead and animate it, right? And also we have now on 5.3 smart baking, which is akin to what layers is. When you actually collapse a layer, you actually only get the changes from the layer that you changed on top and no more, so it's not baked all throughout every single key, which is absolutely amazing. We have a better graph editor nowadays with curve types and tangents and different types of tangents, just like Maya graph editor, which is really, really cool, and much, much more. It's really cool and it's really powerful, and I cannot wait for the day that you can actually make that transition super simple. However, the thing that doesn't allow me or most people to transition to Unreal 5.3 in order to actually make that change and be amazed and all that stuff is two reasons. First reason, which is the simpler reason, is that when you work in a studio and you are attached to an engine, you normally get attached to a specific version of the engine, and then that's it. A game that takes 3 to 5 years to make might be in 5.0 now, or might be in Unreal 4, and then they have to stay in that engine until the game comes out, which means that there's going to be a whole like 3 to 5 years that you're not going to be able to touch anything, any of those tools that have been released now for the people that are starting a game now. So it becomes very a bit of a hindrance and a tease for people like myself that would like to test it, but they can't because the engine is not in the right version and you don't have the tools, and it's all kinds of stuff, right? So you just have to work with what you have at the moment instead of work with the latest tools possible, which is a bit of a problem. And the reason why that is because you want stability in your game. So when you know that the game is stable and is in an engine that you know is kind of sturdy and everything is fine and there's not a lot of bugs and all that stuff, you just stay within that version, and then you kind of like ship the game with that version as best as you possibly can, and then you can only upgrade it once the game ships and is ready to go. This is not only in Unreal, it happens as well in Maya or any software. Like normally you're not in the latest of the latest because normally the latest has bugs and all kinds of problems that need to be solved. You normally in a version below or 2 versions below, or sometimes 3 or 4 versions below, which is not the best. But you always kind of like, just to keep it safe, you kind of like keep yourself a little bit back so you can have stability over the long run, which makes sense, really. And the second reason why this hasn't happened just yet, we're close but not quite yet, is because Maya or any other software that you use to actually kind of bring your assets into engine by themselves have way better tools than the engine has right now. And the reason why I think is because everything is very green right now. Unreal or Epic just has started implementing these tools now. They're taking the best features of every single software and implementing it in their engine in the best way they can, and they're being creative about it because they go about it in a completely different way that sometimes, a lot of the times, is actually better than the software that actually kind of like had the feature from. So for example, Maya's biggest features, the one that every animator just absolutely claims that is absolutely the best feature, including myself, is the graph editor. Nothing is better than Maya's graph editor because it's so flexible, it's so simple, it's so, it's like everything is laid out perfectly, and once you get comfortable with it, it feels like home. When you go to any other graph editor, it feels very much like you have to fight with it, or it's overcomplicated, or there's something always off with it because it's not the Maya's graph editor. And that's been the OG, that's been the gold standard. And I think that Epic is taking the right cues and the right features from this graph editor, and is implementing it in a very interesting way within engine, taking into account all the fancy features that an engine has, including real-time rendering, including real-time play rate and the tick rate and all these other things that actually allow you to see your animation in real time. But it's not quite there, right? It's not quite as good as Maya's one. And I do think that it's going to be only a matter of time until we get to the point where the tools will actually start surpassing what this third-party software is doing. But I do think that how Epic is doing methodically, checking what works, checking what doesn't work. Not everything is going to work, and you just kind of like put it out there, let people test it for a few months, and then put another thing out, improve the last one, and just keep on going. I do think that's the best way, because thinking about this dilemma about third-party software and Unreal and engine software, that's how a Maya got to be Maya. That's how a 3D Max got to be 3D Max. A Blender got to be Blender. Blender's been around since like early 2000s, and only for the last maybe 5-10 years is when Blender really took off, right? Because the tools started becoming super amazing due to the community actually kind of like contributing so much to this piece of software that is absolutely free. I do think there is a method to this whole equation, and I do think that there is a future for us to hopefully one day work in one piece of software and then just have all the tools available to ourselves in this software. So similar to how designers spend all their time in engine, or how engineers spend most of their time in engine as well, for the most part, one day animators, artists in general, are going to be able to do that as well, but just not quite yet. And I think that when that day comes, it's going to be beautiful. For now, I think Epic is doing a brilliant job. There's a few animators that are already venturing into that world. Like, kudos to them, because they're going to be the ones that are going to change things for the better for all the rest of us. It's going to have to be like a massive shift so you can basically finally go to Unreal and at least have the same things and feel as comfortable in Unreal as you feel in Maya, which might take a while since animating in Maya is so easy, and Autodesk, credit is due is keeps doing an amazing job at improving software like Maya and 3D Max every single year to make sure that you keep on delivering more features for all the animators and lighters and modelers and all the people that actually use the software. So hope that actually was useful. This combination of engine and third-party software for now I think works beautifully, but it's going to be finite. The future of this animation industry, this lighting industry, this modeling industry, I think resides somewhere more in engine for games than outside of engine, and that is basically where it should be, because at the end of the day that's what you use to make a game, and that should be your main tool to do everything. I look forward to the day that I can tell my kids when they only work in Unreal, it's like, you know, your dad used to work with about 5 different softwares just to get one thing like you do now. It's gonna be a beautiful day. That's all I had for you guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider subscribing if you haven't so far, give it a like, and comment below and let me know what you think about not using your main software outside of Unreal and basically using Unreal for all of the things that you're doing right now. How good or bad would that be? Where do you stand? That's it. Thanks a lot for all my supporters here in this YouTube channel. Click the join button if you haven't joined so far. Consider helping me every single month to put out these videos every single week. And until next time, stay well, stay safe. Peace.